comes in contact with. A little history about performance-based budgeting. It has been around since the 1950s, but has not started gaining widespread use until today. In the 1960s, a form of performance budgeting was introduced to government called program budgeting. Since then, another form, zero-based budgeting, has tried to become a mainstay in governmental budgeting, but thus far has been unsuccessful. Performance budgeting gained recognition again in the 1990s when President Clinton was in pursuit of the National Performance Review, but his short stay in office led to the end of performance budgeting until recently. With the recent economic crash of 2008 leading to budget cuts across the board, there has been a need for a form of budgeting that can produce results with limited funding. According to our text, Bland gives his definition of what performance budgeting is and what it does. Here it is. It is performance budgeting is designed to improve program efficiency, evaluate the outcomes of program operations, and provide decision makers and the public with better information on what they are getting for their dollars. Which brings me to the pros and cons of performance-based budgeting. On the left, I have the pros, which are improved accountability, provides detailed feedback and results, the ability to track funds from beginning to end, 4 parts to performance-based budgeting, which represent a system of checks and balances, and aid in overall efficiency and effectiveness of governmental budgeting. On the right, I have the cons, where it has yet to become a main form of budgeting, it's lacking experience, it requires a great deal of attention to detail, effort, and time, and the 4 parts of performance-based budgeting represent several opportunities for failure. Each of these represent valid reasons for why performance-based budgeting should be implemented or not. An example that represents both pros and cons of performance-based budgeting I found in my research was in the process of when performance-based budgeting was being implemented in the state of Massachusetts. Like many states in the 1990s, Massachusetts was affected by the national economic recession. In the upcoming fiscal year for 1993, state policymakers were facing a projected $1.6 billion shortfall. To battle this shortfall, Governor William Weld proposed an immediate statewide implementation of a new system of program performance budgeting. He presented documented research he had compiled on a program he was working closely with that could benefit from program performance budgeting. He provided a document in detail of how program performance budgeting would benefit programs within the state of Massachusetts. The governor's recommended budget reduced 731 line item expense categories in the budget down to 128. The number of accounting funds went from 35 to just 5. And within these 5 funds, 342 service delivery groups were identified, and a total of 758 outcome targets were specified for all service delivery groups. Agencies would be allowed to transfer up to 10% of total funds among service delivery groups to achieve outcome targets. And lastly, outcome measures and fund transfers would have been reported quarterly to legislative committees for review. Here is an excerpt from fiscal year 1993 Massachusetts budget message that Governor William Weld prepared and delivered to state legislature, addressing how program performance budgeting will help to resolve the state projected shortfall of funds. Here are 5 main areas that provide the most benefit to the state's budgeting process. The first, a no stone unturned approach to budgeting. Traditionally, we added to a base that was rarely examined. Now, we are asking our managers to build their budgets from the bottom up, to look hard at their operations, and to describe in great detail the services they provide. The second, management flexibility, is program budgeting brings service costs and service delivery face to face, with the ability to judge which programs and services are working and which are not, and the flexibility to move resources as needed among programs. Managers will be empowered and made accountable to meet their service delivery goals. The third, a 4-year financial plan. We are introducing a 4-year financial plan that for the first time will provide more than a 12-month vision of direction and cost of state programs. While we cannot bind future legislatures with this plan, it is a step to help us understand how decisions made today affect future spending. The fourth, appropriation at a higher organizational level of responsibility. Appropriating funds at the current level of detail frustrates managerial flexibility, stifles creativity, and distracts management from its proper focus. We propose to replace the current appropriation items with agency-based appropriations, and to establish service delivery groups for which each agency head will be accountable. While appropriations as we know them will change, the new service delivery groups will provide more usable information than ever before, without interfering with the legislature's ability to amend the proposed agency appropriation. And the fifth and final, fiscal and performance accountability. Claiming success without providing the means to measure success is a hollow assertion. Program budgeting provides the tools for a real assessment of performance, with quantitative goals for the dollars to be spent and the services to be delivered. Based on such an assessment, we can reward good management, provide incentives for innovation and creativity, and hold bad management accountable. If this plan had been executed, it would have aided in the reduction of the shortfall for fiscal year 1993. Unfortunately, this performance budgeting system was never implemented by legislature. This is due to the fact that House leaders did not agree with the governor on the specifics of defining service delivery groups and outcome measures. Another reason for it being unsuccessful is that line item budgeting had been in place for so many years, it would have taken too much time and effort to train agency personnel quick enough to reorient their program information to a whole new budget format. And after endless amounts of research, I've come to the conclusion that performance-based budgeting is the overall best budgeting method for government. It does have its benefits and its drawbacks,